As y'all know, on my channel, I've talked about a lot of savage behavior from various groups of people. If you subscribe to my Patreon, however, you can see even more savage behavior that I can deem to not be appropriate for YouTube. But this one right here, I'm deciding to put up on YouTube for a number of reasons. One, because this behavior definitely has to be exposed to the masses as much as it possibly can. And two, there's certain people within this community right here that I'm going to talk about that love to throw rocks and stones at the black community every chance they get, and I'm gonna acknowledge one of them at the end of the video once I get through the article. But this story right here is absolutely brutal. I mean, it is complete and utter disturbing savage behavior. On the left you see a man by the name of Liren Chen, and on the right is his wife, whose name is Jean Wei Yu. And this man is a engineer for Google, and he's 27 years of age. This guy savagely beat his wife to death with just his fist. He didn't hit her with a blunt object like, say, a pan or a hammer. He used his fist and beat his wife to death with just his fist. Now you have to imagine to yourself, what would make someone go off like that on anyone? It doesn't even have to be your spouse to make you beat someone to death with your hand. Do you know how much force you have to use and how many hits it would have to take to actually accomplish something like that? Unless, of course, as a child, it probably like a baby, like a toddler, it wouldn't even take that much. But this woman beat his wife to death with just a fist in their $2 million home in Santa Clara. And here's the thing, they said they just had dinner with a friend, and the friend said that the killer was oddly quiet and just staring blankly, like he was void of a soul. So that was just what I gathered just off of the title. Now let's get into it. The Google engineer charged with murder last week admitted to beating his wife to death with his fist in their $2 million Santa Clara home. Court documents obtained exclusively by the Daily Mail. And by the way, I'm recording this video on January 23rd, 2024, and it's the day that the article went out is the same day I'm recording it. Police noticed that the suspect, Liren Chen's right hand was extremely swollen and purple, and that he had blood on his clothing, legs, arms, and hands. So he beat his wife to death so badly that his hands began to swell and bruise up. When the fire department personnel asked the 27-year-old how he hurt his hand, he replied, "I punched my wife," and told them it happened the prior day. A friend of Chen told police he'd seen Chen and his wife Jean Wei Yu that prior night when he joined them for dinner at their house, and that Chen was oddly quiet and staring blankly for much of the evening. The friend told police that he was concerned about this noticeable change in Chen's demeanor, the report states. The friend returned to the house in Santa Clara the next day on January 16th to check on him. He walked around back and saw Chen through a rear window, motionless on his knees with his hands in the air, staring blankly, according to the statement of facts filed by police. Unable to get Chen to respond, the friend called 911. Officers saw Chen through the window with blood on his pockets and on his jacket and socks. He remained unresponsive, prompting them to force their way inside. They took Chen into custody and found his wife, a fellow Google engineer, lying on the floor in a bedroom directly behind him. According to police, she had severe blunt force injuries to her head. There was also blood splatter on the ground and the back of the door. Besides the extreme bruising and blood on his right hand and body, police noted that Chen's sandals found in the hallway were also splattered with blood. When fire department personnel asked the 27-year-old how he hurt his hand, he replied, "I punched my wife," and told them it happened yesterday. No weapon was found, but the detective who wrote the report stated that Chen apparently used his bare hands to kill her, striking her in the head repeatedly. Chen, who was initially taken to a hospital, remains in custody pending an arraignment on Wednesday. He and Yu bought their 714 Valley Way in April last spring for $2.5 million. The two-story house, freshly painted with a well-groomed lawn and bushes, is situated in a quiet residential neighborhood in the Silicon Valley. A silver BMW SUV was parked Monday in the driveway of the now shuttered house, which had been crawling with crime scene investigators last Tuesday when they arrived in the morning and stayed into the night. "That's my bedroom window right there," next door neighbor Jenny Powell, age 43, told the Daily Mail. "I'm shocked, all this happening, and I had no idea." Powell said Chen and his wife had been living there just since last April with a cat named Cooper and seemed friendly, bringing her cookies and a card when they moved in. But the couple mostly kept to themselves. Powell's son, upon hearing about the homicide, told his mom, "You mean the shut-ins next door? They weren't here long and they didn't interact with a lot of people." Now see, the red flag will go up right there. And it's crazy because it says they're Google engineers. So it says she worked at Google as well, which means they had to interact with people at their place of employment unless they were shut-ins while they were there as well. She described the bizarre scene of having a dozen police cars flooding her block and a CSI truck parked out front of her house for the entire day. Another neighbor, Sylvia Atondo, told Daily Mail that she'd just seen the couple just a few times walking down the block. "They seemed friendly when we saw them, nothing out of the ordinary," she said. She said her neighborhood is close-knit and gossipy, so if there is any argument involving neighbors, people around here would talk about it, but there was nothing. That's why neighbors are completely shocked. Google spokesperson Bailey Thompson told the New York Post in a statement, "We are shocked and deeply saddened about what has happened to Zhang Yi. Our thoughts are with her family at this time, and we will work to support them and to co-workers who are processing this tragic news." According to his LinkedIn, Chen worked on the YouTube Shorts algorithm for Google, while Yu's page says she was a software engineer. Both of them studied in China at Tsinghua, I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it, forgive me if I did mispronounce it, University, and at the University of California, San Diego. District Attorney Jeff Rosen said 911 calls for domestic violence have risen. He added domestic violence deaths have been falling in our county, but that does not measure the depth and destructiveness of the violence. Anyone who feels that they or someone else is being abused by their partner should please reach out to your local law enforcement agency. You are not alone, and we can help. That is a very wild story right there. And they said because the couple was so quiet and so to themselves, that's why the neighbors were shocked that this even occurred, because they were just, to themselves. If they were out there and more extroverted and out there like that, then, if they didn't see or hear from him for a while, then people would have been raising some suspicions. But now I'm curious, what triggered him to go off on his wife like that to the point where he beat her to death with his fist? Like, that's like a crime of passion right there. And usually when we think of crime of passion, it usually always involves maybe a stabbing of some sort. Usually we always hear about that, but this guy beat his wife to death with his fist. Like, that is another level of rage. You rarely hear people saying they're beating someone to death like that with just their hands. And I'm curious also as well, how many times did he hit his wife? Because they said his hands swelled up and they were purple, so he bruised his hands doing this. So he was hitting her so hard, he probably punched through the flesh and probably hit bone. Shoot, he probably started to hit into the floor. That's how hard he probably hit her. I can only imagine how her face looked by the time they got there, and that coroner's van got there and they had to take her away. And I can only imagine the reaction from the people who work in that morgue. I mean, they see all kinds of stuff every day, but that's not something that you typically hear. It's very rare you hear a story like this. Usually you'll have your typical shooting, stabbing, maybe an arson, but this, it's very rare that happens, or that you hear about. Not saying it's rare that it happens. And remember how I said in the earlier part of the video, it was something or someone I was going to acknowledge when it came to this story. I would like to know what Diane Yap, aka the Great Value Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy, has to say about this. She loves to run her mouth when it comes to black people all the time, every chance she gets, and none of her stuff can be backed up in fact, but she has enough followers to support her grift, so she's going to grift away anyway, especially at the expense of us. What does she have to say about this? Now, this story has been out for about a week. It just got reported today, that on the day that I'm recording it, but I have yet to see her speak on this because she's too busy talking about us. And if she does, or if anyone else over there speaks on it, they'll find a way to flip it back to, oh, black people are very harmful towards Asians. This has nothing to do with that. It's about this man violently and brutally, disturbingly and savagely beating his wife to death with just his bare hands. It has nothing to do with us, but of course they'll find a way to do that, because who did they learn that from? The best. Who did they learn that deflecting that tactic from? The best. Exactly. PC. So I wouldn't be surprised if she did it, but I got a chance and an opportunity to call her out when I put it out there. I highly doubt she'll see it because I have blocked her on there, but it is what it is. But I just know her mindset. I know she's probably not going to speak about this. As a matter of fact, many of them who share anti-black sentiments are not going to talk about this, although they should, because we can throw this right back onto them. They like to always talk about black on black crime. Let's throw this onto them. This is Asian on Asian crime. So I take it a step further past Diane. What does the AAPI have to say about this? Again, the story is a week old from the time of me recording it, over a week old, probably. So inquiring minds would like to know, but I won't hold my breath at the same time. I had to add this one last piece of thing in here. Now, some of you may or may not remember this tweet, but this was posted up in one of my videos before I got blocked by the Active Asian account. Good thing I was able to get a hold of it before they ended up blocking me, because we was out there just exposing them for the anti-black individuals that they are, whoever is running this account. But on August 27, 2023, they made this tweet. Asians aren't going out and being violent and uncivilized to blacks or Latinos or white Americans, etc. I'll let you determine which part of this tweet is actually false. But the reason why I brought this back up into this one is because if you look and examine the tweet, and many people overlook it who came across it, they said that they aren't going out and being uncivilized and violent to blacks, Latinos, or white Americans. What they did not say in this tweet is that they weren't going out there being violent or uncivilized to their own. Now revert back to the story that you just watched over the last 10 minutes or so and make it make sense.